Hello, beautiful people. Welcome back to 11 Minutes with Felicity. I am Felicity from Felicity, the Power Within. Today we have Dana coming back to talk about some things going up in the skies in May and also in June. Thank you, Dana, for being here. Hi.
Hello, thank you for having me back. I love chatting with you.
So I know we are having two eclipses coming up in May and June, Dana. So please tell us more about these eclipses and what kind of eclipses are they? The moon or the sun?
All of that good stuff. Yes.
Yeah.
I want to start by just explaining a little bit about what eclipses mean from an astrological perspective. Eclipses represent sudden change. And with sudden change, we can experience drama. And that typically is because we're not ready to accept whatever that change is happening in our lives. So a lunar eclipse tends to bring things to fulfillment or culmination, or removes something from our lives that's no longer serving us. So a lot of times there's drama because we don't want to let go of whatever is being removed from our lives. So we can liken it to maybe, unfortunately, for a lot of people that have experienced this year, maybe a sudden layoff in a job, right? Like that's not something we wanted to happen, but ultimately we have to trust that whatever is being removed or being fulfilled or coming to an end is for our greatest and highest good. It's to make room for what something new can be brought into our lives. So solar eclipses then are about bringing the new thing in. And even when we have something new that suddenly happens, even though it might be a really good thing, it can still create drama. So we think about a wedding. A wedding is a beautiful thing, but oftentimes there can be drama around a wedding too, right? So we understand that it's a sudden change, and the more we can accept whatever that change looks like, the less drama we experience with it. So you might hear in astrology, some people like, oh no, we have an eclipse coming up. But really, it's ultimately a really good thing because it's removing something and allowing something new to come in. Eclipse cycles generally last anywhere from 18 to 24 months. We are currently in an eclipse cycle that started last summer, and it will end, the end of this year. And we're in the cycle of Gemini and Sagittarius. So eclipses always happen in opposite signs. So prior to last year, so I guess it was 2018 or 2019 kind of timeframe, we were in a Capricorn and Cancer eclipse cycle, which was a lot about home and work. And now, as of last summer, we shifted into this Gemini Sagittarius cycle. And we have a couple of them coming up. Oftentimes eclipses can happen in pairs. So that thing being removed, something new coming in kind of energy. At any point during the eclipse cycle, you can have any type of eclipse activity happen, meaning sudden change can happen at any point during that 18 to 24 months. But the closer you get to the actual eclipse date is when that energy heats up and gets really active. And typically that energy starts heating up anywhere from 6 to 8 weeks in advance of the eclipse and after the eclipse, kind of a pre and post shadow period. So we're in the thick of the eclipse energy right now. We have the first one happening on May 26th. It's happening in the sign of Sagittarius. It is a lunar eclipse, so it is removing something from our lives. And I love this one because this eclipse is taking place at 5 degrees of Sagittarius. And we are in a 5-year, numerology speaking. So it's 2021 is a 5-year, and the month of May is a 5-month. And this is happening at 5 degrees. And 5 in numerology is, I know you can't make this up. It's so, there are no coincidences, right? A 5 in numerology is the number of change and freedom. So, and Sagittarius is a sign, it's a mutable sign that is all about change and freedom. So we have this idea of something being removed from our lives that is maybe preventing us from being free, that's preventing us to change and move forward in a way that we need to. So be on the lookout for anything related to higher learning, education, expansion of the mind. This can be related to philosophies or belief systems. So a lot of people's belief systems are changing. Philosophies on life, religion, anything spiritual is connected to Sagittarian energy. It's a house of international travel. So anything related to travel or anything international from various countries working together. So any of those types of themes can happen. It's also a communication house, a house of publishing and writing. So things can be changing there. News, right? We get our news. So when we think of then the balance of that, we have the Gemini solar eclipse happening June 10th. And that's happening at 19 degrees. So again, we're kind of reaching into this zodiac sign of when in numerology, you would reduce 19 to a 1. And that is the number of new beginnings, of initiation of creation. And so we have the solar eclipse bringing something new in. Anything that can relate to Gemini is going to be related to your local neighborhood, your local environment. It can be related to the news. So we might be hearing sudden news, good news, changes in the news will come forth. It's a communication house. So any of our devices that we communicate with, new technologies in that space. So we're talking on a computer, but your phone, any other devices of that nature. Anything related to mobility might change. So your physical body moving about your world, as well as cars, trains, planes, anything kind of in that mobility phase. So there's a lot related to transportation. There's a lot related to education as well, early childhood education for Gemini. So these two polarities of Sagittarius and Gemini will be taking something away from a belief system or education from a higher perspective, international travel, versus something new coming in from the Gemini perspective of different forms of communication, travel and mobility in your local neighborhood, your local country, your environment there, as well as any sort of early childhood education pieces there. So there's this kind of duality that happens in the eclipse cycles, but it's very exciting energy that's going to take us through even into the end of July with these possibilities of sudden change.
It sounds really exciting.
It is very exciting. I mean, I personally love change. So for me, I'm like, bring it, bring on whatever you got, right? Again, the drama comes in because sometimes we're not ready for the change, and that's okay. We're not ready to let go of something, or we're not even ready to accept something new. So it is important to sort of sit with the feelings and sit with the emotions that come up, understand them, love yourself through the changes, right, that we're going through. And it feels like we've just been going through changes since, last, 2020, the whole year, right? So no big surprise that we're continuing to change in this way, because we are starting to move forward in creating a new reality for ourselves. What's beautiful with both of these eclipses is that I feel like we're at a place where the future is not set. There's lots of different options and lots of different choices we can have. So we have a beautiful opportunity at this point to manifest the lives we want to have, to think about creating a new life that feels fulfilling for each individual person, whatever that looks like for them. What I've just described from these eclipses is that this is what the collective, all of us, will have opportunities for surprises in these areas. But there's also a whole nother layer to this. So it's important for people to understand what their birth chart or their natal chart looks like. And there's plenty of free websites out there that you could plug in your birth date, place, time, location, all that, and you will get a birth chart. And it's wonderful to look at then where Sagittarius is in your chart. Where is that 5-degree mark? And where is 19 degrees of Gemini in your chart? Because those can be other areas in addition to what we just talked about that can also be impacted. So for me personally, as an example, Sagittarius rules my 4th house, and Gemini is in my 10th house. So the 4th house represents my home, family, home businesses, the physical space I live in. And the 10th house relates to career, your public reputation, what's going on out in the world. So those are also going to be impacted with potentially sudden change for me, in addition to those other areas I talked about. So it's really important for us to understand ourselves at that soul level in that natal chart, because then you can see, okay, Collectively, I might experience one thing, but personally, I might experience another. So it's helpful when those surprises happen to say, okay, I can trust this. I know it is from the divine, and it is important for me to move through this. And I will look for whatever ways help me travel this journey, right? So whether that's meditation or connecting from a spiritual perspective or being with close friends and family, whatever that looks like for each individual, you can say, okay, now's the time I can go connect, or now's the time I can take a little time by myself, right? And relax too. So it's great to then personalize the energetic momentum to you, and then decide what feels good for you and how do you move through it with as much ease as possible.
Do you have any advice for the fixed signs, or maybe the signs that are not very comfortable with change, maybe? Because some of us are comfortable with change, some of us are not. So how
Sure.
can you dive into
All of this good stuff?
Yeah.
Well, Sagittarius and Gemini are both mutable signs. So they're very flexible and adaptable. And, if you have that, or Pisces or Virgo in prominent places in your chart, you're usually have a little bit more ease with change, like flow through it a little bit easier. Not to say that it can't be a little bit difficult depending upon what it is, but we tend to just, okay, let's keep going, right? Adapt and learn. When you have a fixed sign, it is trickier, right? Like they like things the way they like them. They don't necessarily want to change. And that can be a little bit more of a struggle. So it's important to, I think, really take a minute and allow the process of emotion to come through, right? So if you're struggling with change and there's a bigger question of why am I having to go through this, or why is this happening to me? It really is finding the way that you can be grounded. And I think we talked about this a little bit last time, was if you're an earth sign, really connect with earth. If you're an air sign, do some breath work. That's really beautiful. If you're a water sign, spend some time in or near water, any form. And fire signs, like light a candle, start a fire in your fireplace, whatever that looks like to connect to that energy. That can always help us feel grounded, because typically in a fixed sign is experiencing change, it feels like an earthquake. It feels like there's no stable place to go. There's no steady, safe environment to be in. So when you can connect with your element in that way, it can help bring a sense of peace and grounding to you. From that space, you can then start to process the emotions I'm feeling. Is it fear? Is it scarcity? Is it lack? Whatever. And those are typically the roots of everything we experience. If it's frustration or anger, you can typically keep asking, well, why am I angry? And if you keep asking those whys into yourself, ultimately you come back to fear. And for me specifically, what works when I am faced with fear, because I'm human and everyone gets it, right?
Yeah.
Is I sit there and I go, okay, how can I unwind this fear? So I might ask myself, okay, if I'm afraid of losing my job, why am I afraid of losing my job? Well, okay, I have bills to pay. Do I have any savings set aside that might help me? Do I have other people in my life that can help me? Do I trust that God, source, the universe will provide for me in a time of need? Do I trust those things, right? So then I can say, okay, well, if I trust those things, if I have a little bit of savings, or if I have family and friends who could help and support me if I lost my job, do I really need to be afraid of losing that job? Do I trust that a better job is going to come in for me, right? So we can start to sort of process and unwind fears that way. Can also help fixed signs a little bit as well, manage through that. So I definitely think connecting with your element, finding peace, meditation, time of quiet, and then really start to understand, where is that coming from? Is it coming from a place of fear? And then can I unwind that fear? And then it creates a little bit more of a stability amidst, the shaking ground.
Yeah. And just believe that, the universe definitely has your back.
In every way, shape, and form.
Yeah.
It doesn't always stop the fear, right? But the fear can show up as a way to remind us that the universe has our back.
Totally, yeah. Totally.
It's a little reminder to say, I got you, it's okay. And it just brings it to our awareness again, that trust and that faith.
Yeah, this is so true. Thank you, Dana, for being here. Thank you for all your advice and everything that you shared with us all about the two eclipses coming up. And I'm sure people will definitely find them really interesting because things are really turning up.
Definitely. I feel so blessed and honored to share with you and your audience. So thank you for having me.
Thank you and see you next time.